On a game show, the host asked my mom. What's 1 plus 1? My mom didn't hesitate. It equals 3. Everyone froze. My family had joined the show to raise money for my astronomical medical bills. Answer 10 questions correctly and they'd win $5 million. After struggling through 9 questions, the host took pity and asked a softball question. This prize money was my lifeline. But my mom, a PhD in mathematics, deliberately answered it wrong. I bolted upright in my hospital bed, chest tight with pain. The post recovered quickly, plastering on a smile. Dr. Lily Smith is a mathematician's PhD. Perhaps in unexplored mathematical fields. 1 plus 1 can equal 3. However, the question I just asked is very simple. You only need to think like a first grader. But my mom blinked and said firmly, 1 plus 1 equals 3. The host's expression darkened. My brother held up 2 fingers, waving them frantically in front of Mom's face. Mom, just answer one more question correctly, and we can get the prize money for Chloe's surgery. This isn't the time for jokes. Dad was sweating bullets, too. Honey, did you mishear the question? Or did you misspeak? But no matter how Dad and my brother pleaded, Mom stuck to her answer. 1 plus 1 equals 3. The audience exploded. Is this mother insane? This has to be scripted. What mother would want her own child to die? Each question had a 10-minute time limit. As the countdown neared its end, I begged the doctor to help me video call the show. The production team connected immediately. My pale, weak face appeared on the big screen. Crowd gasped in sympathy. The host's eyes reddened with emotion. At 16, I've been diagnosed with a malignant heart tumor, and was in critical condition every moment. The only hope for my survival was this prize money. The host was frantic. There are only 3 minutes left on the countdown. If you answer incorrectly, all your family's efforts will be wasted. Qualify for the show. My whole family had stayed up for 3 months, memorizing the question bank. They barely made it through 9 questions. And now Mom was spouting nonsense. On the 10th, I spoke carefully. Mom, the prize is $5 million. My treatment only cost $3 million. I won't take a penny of what's left. When I recover, I'll work hard and give you every paycheck to show my gratitude. The crowd murmured sympathetically. Mom's eyes welled up, too. With 10 seconds left on the countdown, Mom raised her hand to indicate she wanted to change her answer. I finally breathed a sigh of relief. Maybe Mom had just been joking with everyone. I'm sorry I misspoke earlier. 1 plus 1 should equal. I held my breath. Mom surveyed the room, then suddenly smiled. 1 plus 1 equals 1. The countdown ended. The $5 million on the screen instantly disappeared. Then Mom said leisurely, sorry. I was careless and said it wrong. 1 plus 1 should equal 2. But the countdown had ended. My surgery funds were gone. Sharp pain shot through my chest. I nearly blacked out from the agony. My brother lost control, shouting, Mom, what are you doing? Chloe's going to die. Mom just calmly pointed at the screen. Look. Isn't Chloe suffering? You know she's suffering. And you deliberately answered wrong. My brother's eyes were bloodshot. You knew perfectly well that if you answered correctly, she could live. This is all your fault. Mom suddenly raised her voice. My fault? I didn't do it on purpose. Of course. I know 1 plus 1 equals 2. But I was just careless. Careless? My eyes widened in shock. How could anyone carelessly answer 1 plus 1 wrong? Mom knew perfectly well that without the prize money for surgery, I would die immediately. Why would she? Amid everyone's confusion and anger, Mom raised an eyebrow and turned to look at my brother. Carson, do you remember on your middle school entrance exam? You lost a full 5 points because you wrote 1 plus 1 equals 3. Because of those 5 points, you couldn't get into the top middle school. When I criticized you then, you had the nerve to talk back. saying you were just careless and would be more careful next time. Today, I'm showing you exactly what kind of consequences a moment of carelessness can cause. Mom pointed at the big screen. Take a good look. And remember what Chloe looks like right now. Covered in sweat from pain. This is the consequence of carelessness. Today, I'm using your sister's suffering to teach you a lesson. Everyone exploded. I stared in disbelief. My brother was already a college junior. Mom was still holding a grudge about his middle school entrance exam. Dad was furious. You realize Chloe's about to die. If you wanted to teach Carson a lesson, couldn't you have picked another time? Mom muttered impatiently. Doctors always exaggerate. Chloe's so young. She can definitely hold on longer than other people. Carson's careless habits should have been corrected long ago. Gentle methods don't work. So I'm giving him a lesson he'll remember in his bones. I could barely breathe. The nurse gripped my hands tightly, her eyes full of pity. Dad roared that he'd fight Mom to the death. Mom raised her hand to block him. What's the rush? Doesn't the show have one more bonus round? If we answer the next question correctly, we won't get 5 million. But we can still get 3 million. That's enough for Chloe's surgery. With the host's intervention, Dad and my brother finally calmed down. Mom looked at the big screen, her gaze tender. Chloe, hang in there a little longer. Mom just wanted to take this opportunity to teach your brother a lesson. I promise I'll answer the next question correctly. I bit my lip hard, forcing back tears. Mom, I know you love me. But for the next question, can Dad or Carson answer instead? Mom's expression froze. Dad and my brother were afraid Mom would pull another stunt, and strongly supported my suggestion. But unfortunately, during the earlier rounds, they'd already used up their chances to answer. So Mom had to go up again. This last question determined whether I lived or died. The studio fell silent. The host was sweating as he frantically searched the question bank, finally selecting the simplest possible question. Miss Lily Smith, what's your birthday? I relaxed, looking at the host with gratitude. Mom hit the answer button without hesitation. But said host, I'd like to use my lifeline. Phone a friend. The room erupted. How could someone not remember their own birthday? A wave of panic hit me. Since I got sick, Mom had been getting more and more gray hair. I'd heard that middle-aged people under prolonged mental stress could easily develop dementia. Mom's condition already deteriorated this badly. Tears blurred my vision. My hands trembled. Mom chose Dad as her lifeline. Dad looked helpless. Your birthday is January 8th. Mom nodded and pressed the answer button again, but was suddenly stopped by my anxious brother. Mom, did you hear clearly? What date is it exactly? Repeat it. At my brother's insistence, Mom repeated January 8th 3 times before being allowed to press the answer button. But Mom still didn't speak. Seeing Mom's nervousness, I endured the sharp pain in my heart and tried to comfort her. Don't be afraid, Mom. Just answer this one question and it'll all be over. Mom smiled at me, but her answer plunged me into ice-cold despair. My birthday is January 9th. The air froze instantly. The host immediately tried to smooth things over. Your husband said your birthday is January 8th. Miss Smith must have misspoken. Please answer again. But Mom's gaze was resolute. I didn't misspeak. I said it wrong on purpose. The audience exploded. My heart hurt so badly. I couldn't straighten up. Nurse tried to end the video call, but I stopped her. Mom, why did you deliberately answer wrong again? My voice shook with pain. Mom's eyes filled with tears, but her tone was aggrieved. It's all your father's fault. Not just Dad. Everyone was stunned. Dad had told her the correct answer. What had he done wrong? Under the host's questioning, Mom wiped her tears and revealed the truth. Few weeks ago was our 20th wedding anniversary and my birthday. But Sean actually got the date wrong. Sean, you said my birthday was January 9th. So now I'm making it come true. Dad's veins bulged with anger. I did accidentally get your birthday wrong. But those few days I was working consecutive all-nighters to earn medical expenses for Chloe. I was completely exhausted and confused. So I got the date wrong. I apologized afterward. And worked 3 more weeks of all-night delivery shifts to buy you a gold bracelet to make up for it. Isn't that enough? Mom said nothing. Just bowed her head and wiped her tears. The countdown kept ticking down. The burning pain in my chest had become unbearable. Cold sweat soaking the bed sheets. Dad kept begging Mom to give the correct answer so they could get the money and rush me into surgery. But Mom remained unmoved. I was completely heartbroken. So my life was just a tool for Mom to teach my family lessons. 3 minutes left on the countdown. Using all my strength, I personally ended the live stream. The doctors and nurses in the room all had red eyes. My voice was barely a whisper, but utterly determined. Doctor, I want to sign an organ donation agreement. Also after I die, I want my mom to witness the entire organ removal process. Mom, don't you love teaching people lessons? Then today, I'll teach you one, too. The second I finished signing, excruciating pain engulfed my entire body. Everything went black. In the last second, before I lost consciousness, I heard Mom roaring on the show. What are you all panicking about? Chloe's illness isn't new. How could she suddenly die just like that? Dad was forced to his knees before Mom in front of a national audience, begging forgiveness and promising never to forget another important date. Mom finally gave the correct answer in the last second, before the countdown ended. But it was already too late. In the emergency room, doctors frantically pressed on my chest. But my heartbeat grew weaker and weaker. The attending physician shouted, "We need to operate now." But the prize money hadn't arrived yet. My account only had a few $100s. Hospital policy only allowed standard emergency care. As consciousness faded, I seemed to see Mom. Mom, you knew I could die any second. Why did you keep deliberately answering wrong and wasting time? Mom, don't you love me? The doctor's CPR grew more forceful. I could almost hear my ribs cracking. Mom, I really can't hold on much longer. If you could just come see me one last time, I wouldn't blame you. But I waited and waited. Shot after shot of epinephrine was injected into my veins. Yet my breathing still gradually weakened. The monitor beeped. Hospital policy: no money. No surgery. The doctor called the production team furiously. Didn't they answer correctly? Why hasn't the prize money arrived? But the production team was helpless, too. We wanted to transfer the money directly to the hospital account, but her mother insisted on cash. They're probably rushing to the hospital with the cash now. The breath I've been barely holding on to finally gave out. My heart monitor flatlined. Then I heard my family arguing. Chloe's hanging by a thread. Why did you insist on cash? Mom said self-righteously. 3 years ago you got scammed out of $200 online. Online payments are so dangerous. And you still haven't learned? Cash is safest. Today I'm teaching you a good lesson. Dad was frantic, rushing forward. Fine. Fine. Cash is safe. But what about Chloe? Every second she waits puts her in more danger. Mom said reluctantly, stop talking. If Chloe's in danger, it's because you cursed her. She was fine this morning. How could something happen this afternoon in the emergency room? The doctor was pulling a white sheet over my face. Oblivious Mom pushed open my hospital room door. Chloe. Mom brought the money. The sound of the heavy suitcase hitting the linoleum floor was louder than the flatline. Thud. It was the sound of $3 million in unsequential bills. It was the sound of a lifeline thrown too late. Chloe. Mom brought the money. Lily's voice was bright, jarringly cheerful against the sterile silence of the room. She stood in the doorway, chest heaving slightly from the run, a bead of sweat tracing a line down her perfectly applied foundation. She looked from the suitcase to the bed, expecting movement. Expecting relief. She didn't look at the monitor. She looked at the lump under the white sheet. Chloe. Lily's brow furrowed, that familiar crease appearing, the one she used when I failed a math test. Stop hiding. It's childish. The money is right here. Doctor, prepare the surgery. Dr. Sterling, the attending physician, didn't move. His hands were still resting on the edge of the gurney, his knuckles white. He looked at my mother not with anger, but with a profound, terrifying hollowness. Mrs. Smith, Dr. Sterling said. His voice was a dry rattle. There is no surgery. Lily let out a sharp, dismissive laugh. Don't be ridiculous. We have the money. I told you, cash is safest. The transfer would have taken hours to clear. I taught my family a lesson about cybersecurity, and now I'm here to pay. Count it if you must. Mom. Carson's voice came from the corner. It didn't sound like my brother. It sounded like an animal caught in a trap, whimpering. He was slumped against the wall, sliding down until he hit the floor. Mom, stop. Stop what? Lily snapped, turning to him. Stop saving your sister. You should be thanking me. If I hadn't insisted on cash. She's dead, Lily. The voice belonged to my father. He was still on his knees by the bedside, his hand under the sheet, gripping my cooling hand. He didn't look up. Lily froze. The air in the room seemed to curdle. She adjusted her glasses, her eyes darting around the room, processing the data points but refusing to calculate the sum. Dead? She scoffed, though her voice wavered slightly. Don't be dramatic, Sean. It's a coma. Or shock. Chloe is strong. I know her biological limits. She's 16. Her heart has a 20% ejection fraction, which is sustainable for at least another 12 hours with epinephrine support. I did the math. The math was wrong, Dr. Sterling said, stepping away from the bed. He reached out and grasped the top edge of the sheet. Don't you dare, Lily warned, her voice dropping an octave. Don't you cover her face. She hates the dark. Time of death, 1:09 a.m., Dr. Sterling announced to the room, ignoring her. He pulled the sheet up. The white fabric settled over my face. The finality of it was like a gavel striking a sound block. For a moment, the only sound was the hum of the air conditioning. Then, Lily marched forward. She didn't run to hug me. She didn't collapse. She marched to the monitor and began jabbing buttons, as if the machine were a calculator that had given an incorrect answer. This is broken, she muttered, her fingers flying. The sensors are loose. Reattach them. Reattach them now. Ma'am, please, a nurse whispered, reaching out. Lily slapped the nurse's hand away. Get away from her. You're all incompetent. Chloe. Chloe. Wake up right now. This isn't funny anymore. You're trying to teach me a lesson now. Is that it? She grabbed my shoulders through the sheet and shook me. My head lolled lifelessly. The weight of dead weight is different from sleeping weight. It is heavy, dense, and undeniable. Lily stopped shaking me. She stared at her hands. I brought the cash, she whispered, looking at the suitcase. 3 million. I answered the question right. January 9th. I corrected Sean's mistake. You killed her, Carson whispered. Lily spun around. What? You killed her. Carson screamed, lunging from the floor. He didn't look like a college student anymore, he looked like a feral child. He threw himself at our mother, his hands clawing at her tailored blazer. You killed her for a lesson. For 5 points on a math test. For a date. For cash. Carson. Control yourself. Lily shrieked, stumbling back, tripping over the suitcase. The latch popped open. Bundles of $100 bills spilled out, sliding across the polished floor, surrounding my deathbed like a mockery of a shrine. Green paper. Millions of it. Enough to buy a house, a life, a future. But it couldn't buy a heartbeat. The security guards had to drag Carson out. He was hyperventilating, screaming until his voice gave out. Dad stayed on the floor, catatonic. Lily stood amidst the scattered money, smoothing her skirt. She was shaking, but her face was a mask of icy denial. He's emotional, she said to the doctor, her voice trembling. He doesn't understand the complexities of parenting. One day he'll understand that I did this for them. Mrs. Smith, Dr. Sterling cut in, his tone devoid of any bedside manner. We need to discuss the body. The body? Lily blinked. We're taking her home. Once she wakes up. She is not waking up, Sterling snapped. He picked up a clipboard from the counter. However, Chloe was lucid in her final moments. She signed a document. Lily's eyes narrowed. A document? She's a minor. She can't sign anything without my consent. In this state, for organ donation, she can express intent, and given the circumstances, we are honoring it. But there is a condition. Sterling walked over to Lily and held up the paper. It was stained with a single drop of blood where the 4 had been pulled too roughly. My signature was shaky, barely legible. I, Chloe Smith, hereby donate my organs to those on the waiting list. My heart, my liver, my kidneys, my corneas. Everything. Condition, my mother, Lily Smith, must witness the explantation surgery. She must stay in the room from the first incision to the final stitch. If she looks away, or leaves, the donation is void. Lily read the paper. She read it twice. This is absurd, she sneered. Why would she want me to watch? Is this some kind of morbid revenge? Chloe said. The doctor looked at his notes. Mom loves teaching lessons. Today, I'll teach her one. Lily stiffened. Her competitive streak, the part of her that refused to lose a debate, flared up. She saw this not as a tragedy, but as a challenge. A gauntlet thrown down by her daughter. She thinks I'm weak, Lily whispered. She thinks I can't handle reality. She thinks because I'm a mathematician, I can't handle biology. Lily looked at the dead body, then at the doctor. A twisted smile appeared on her lips. Fine, she said. I'll watch. I'll watch the whole thing. And when you cut her open and realize her heart is actually strong enough to be restarted, you'll all see that I was right. This is just a deep coma. Go ahead. Prove me wrong. Dr. Sterling stared at her in horror. She genuinely didn't believe I was dead. She thought the autopsy would be the moment of resurrection. Prepare the ore, Sterling said softly to the nurse. And get a chair for Mrs. Smith. Place it right next to the operating table. The operating room was cold. Much colder than the ward. Lily was scrubbed in, wearing a blue gown and a mask, but she refused the surgical cap, claiming it ruined her hair. She sat on a high stool, 3 feet from the table. My body lay there. Pale. Still. The tubes were gone. The monitor was off. Start the clock, Lily said, checking her watch. Let's see how long this charade lasts before she flinches. The transplant team entered. They weren't speaking. They moved with a solemn efficiency that unnerved Lily. Usually, doctors chattered. Today, the silence was heavy. Scalpel, the surgeon said. Lily leaned forward. Careful, she critiqued. Don't cut too deep. You don't want to scar her for the prom. The surgeon ignored her. He placed the blade against the center of my chest. Zip. The sound of skin parting is distinct. It's wet and tearing. Lily flinched, her eyes widening. There was no blood flow, gravity had already settled the blood to my back, but the opening of the cavity was visceral. She didn't move, Lily whispered. Sternum saw, the surgeon commanded. The whir of the bones saw filled the room. It was a loud, mechanical grinding. Stop. Lily stood up, her chair clattering back. That's too loud. You'll wake her up in a panic. Sit down, Mrs. Smith, Dr. Sterling said from the corner. Or leave. But if you leave, Chloe's last wish is void. Lily gripped the edge of the instrument tray. I'm not leaving. I'm not a quitter. I finish what I start. She sat back down. She watched as they cracked my chest open. The sound of ribs snapping back with the retractor was like tree branches breaking in a storm. And then, she saw it. My heart. It sat in the mediastinum, motionless. A dark, bruised purple mass. It wasn't beating. It wasn't fluttering. It was dead meat. Lily stared at it. She had a PhD. She understood geometry, volume, flow dynamics. She stared at the organ that was supposed to be pumping 5 liters of blood per minute. Stimulate it, she commanded, her voice shaking. Use the paddles. Jumpstart it. It's necrotic, Mrs. Smith, the surgeon said calmly, working around the aorta. The tumor invaded the left ventricle. Even if we had the money 3 hours ago, it might have been too late. But 3 hours ago, she had a pulse. She had perfusion. She was alive. I was teaching a lesson, Lily stammered. Carson needed to learn about carelessness. And what did Chloe learn? The surgeon asked, not looking up as he clamped the superior vena cava. Lily didn't answer. She watched as they severed the great vessels. One by one. The aorta. The pulmonary artery. With a final snip, the surgeon lifted my heart out of my chest. My body was now a hollow shell. A container. Lily let out a sound that wasn't human. It was a high-pitched wheeze. The visual reality had finally bypassed her logical defenses. There was no heart in her daughter. Therefore, her daughter could not wake up. Put it back, she whispered. The surgeon placed the heart in a metal basin filled with ice. Put it back. Lily screamed, standing up and lunging for the basin. You took it out. Put it back. She needs that. Nurses grabbed her arms. She struggled, kicking and screaming, her refined persona shattering completely. It's just a math problem, she wailed, tears streaming down her face, soaking her mask. 1 + 1 = 2. I know it equals 2. I said it wrong. I said it wrong. Put it back and I'll say it right. I'll say it right 1,000,000 times. She looked at the empty cavity in my chest. The emptiness stared back at her. 1 + 1 = 2, she sobbed, collapsing into the nurse's arms. Please, 1 + 1 = 2. Time of explant, 2:45 a.m., the surgeon marked. Proceeding to liver. The funeral was closed casket. Lily insisted on it. She couldn't bear for anyone to see the errors in the work. But nobody came to the funeral. The game show clip had gone viral. Not just viral, global. The internet is a cruel judge, but a swift one. Hashtag 1 + 1 = murder was trending worldwide. Lily stood by the grave, alone. Sean had left the morning after I died. He didn't say a word. He just packed a bag, took the gold bracelet he had bought Lily for her birthday, and left it on the kitchen counter. He filed for divorce via text message, result, 0. Carson had dropped out of college. He couldn't focus. He moved to a different state, changed his last name. He sent Lily one letter. It contained a single sheet of paper with a middle school math problem on it, circled in red ink. Lily stood in the rain, the black umbrella shielding her from the physical storm, but not the psychological one. She returned to the empty house. The $5 million, well, the $3 million she won, was sitting in the living room. The police had returned it as it wasn't evidence of a crime, technically. Being a bad mother isn't a felony. Lily sat on the sofa. The silence of the house was deafening. She looked at the stacks of money. I won, she whispered to the empty room. I proved my point. Cash is safer. She picked up a stack of bills. I have the money. I can pay for the surgery now, Chloe. You can come out. She walked to my bedroom door. It was closed. Chloe. She opened the door. The room was exactly as I left it. The posters. The unmade bed. The smell of my vanilla perfume. I know you're hiding. You're trying to teach me a lesson about loneliness. Okay. I get it. I learned. She threw the bundle of cash onto my bed. Here's your allowance. Come out. Nothing. Lily's breath hitched. She went to the kitchen and grabbed a lighter. She walked back to the living room, to the suitcase. You think money is the problem? She asked the air. You think I care about the money? She lit the corner of $100 bill. It curled and blackened, a small orange flame dancing. She threw it into the suitcase. The paper caught easily. The fire grew. See? Lily laughed, her eyes wide and manic. I'm burning it. I'm burning the lifeline. Are you happy? Does this teach you that I love you? The flames licked higher, smoke filling the room. The fire alarm blared, a piercing, rhythmic screech. Beep. 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 It sounded like the heart monitor. Lily sat on the floor, watching the $3 million turn to ash. The heat was intense, singing her eyebrows. 1 + 1 equals. She muttered, rocking back and forth. The curtains caught fire. The wallpaper began to peel. 1 + 1 equals 3, she whispered. If 1 + 1 equals 3, then the rules don't apply. If the rules don't apply, you aren't dead. In a universe where 1 + 1 is 3, you are still alive. She smiled, closing her eyes as the heat engulfed her. I just have to find that universe. 6 months later. The psychiatric facility was quiet, located in the rolling hills of the countryside. Carson sat in the visitor's chair. He hadn't wanted to come, but the doctors said it was necessary for closure. Lily sat across from him. She was wearing a gray jumpsuit. Her hair was white now, completely white. Her hands were bandaged from the burns she sustained before the firefighters pulled her out of the house. She didn't look at Carson. She was looking at the table, using her finger to trace invisible equations. Mom? Carson said. Lily didn't look up. Sure. I'm calculating the variable. Mom, I'm getting married, Carson said, his voice thick. I wanted you to know. I'm not inviting you. But I wanted you to know. Lily stopped tracing. She looked up. Her eyes were clear, terrifyingly lucid for a second. What date? She asked. June 12th, Carson said. Lily narrowed her eyes. Are you sure? Or are you being careless? Check the calendar, Carson. A moment of carelessness can cost you everything. Carson stood up. You haven't changed. You're still in there. I'm just teaching you, she said, her voice rising. I'm teaching you so you don't end up like. She faltered. She couldn't say the name. Like Chloe? Carson said brutally. Chloe is dead, Mom. Because of you. Lily smiled. It was a serene, broken smile. No, dear. You're bad at math. Let me explain. She leaned forward, her eyes gleaming with madness. I donated her eyes. I donated her kidneys. I donated her skin. Her liver went to a man in Ohio. Her heart valves went to a baby in Florida. Lily held up her hands, counting on her fingers. One Chloe became 5 people. So, you see. I didn't subtract. I multiplied. She laughed. A dry, rasping sound. 1 + 1 didn't equal 0. It equaled 5. I win. I still win. Carson stared at her. He realized then that there was no lesson that could reach her. She had rewritten reality to survive her own guilt. She was trapped in a fortress of twisted logic that no emotion could breach. Goodbye, Mom, Carson said. He walked to the door. Carson, she called out. He stopped, hand on the handle. June 12th, she shouted. Don't forget. If you forget, don't blame me when it rains. I won't be responsible. Carson walked out. The heavy steel door clanged shut. Inside the room, Lily went back to the table. She licked her dry lips and put her finger on the surface. 1 + 1 equals. She paused. A tear leaked from her eye, tracking through the burn scars on her cheek. She traced the number 3. Then she erased it with her palm, hitting the table in frustration. She traced 1. Erased it. She traced 2. She stared at the 2. The correct answer. The answer that would have saved her daughter. She let out a low, agonizing wail, curling into a ball on the chair. 2, she sobbed into the silence. It was just 2. But the room gave no answer. The time for answers had expired.